Welcome to the Stellantis Tech and AI podcast. I'm Dale Jewett, your host, and in this episode, our guest is Tara Vatcher, Stellantis Global Senior Vice President for Software Architecture and Platform Development. That's a mouthful. Tara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dale. Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. And hi to everybody.
I appreciate you taking the time. So recently I've been thinking, the auto industry is in this major transition to electrified propulsion, which I'm inclined to think that means that software is going to be the new horsepower. Or maybe it's the new 6-barrel carburetor, although that's not really a good apples to apples comparison. But from where you sit, Tara, what role does software play in the industry's future?
Well, you're right. Software is what we might call the new carburetor. It replaces really what used to be the mechanical controls, traditionally the mechanical controls, but really is just a subset of what software is to the vehicle. I think if we just touch on electrification specifically, right? So we must think that, when you're thinking about electrification, you're thinking about batteries and the motors and really everything that provides that electrical power to the wheels. But all of this is controlled by software, right? So you really need to think of now what is the vehicle, in terms of software, but really software now becomes that vehicle, right? And we often think of it in terms of the software-defined vehicle as we're developing today. So really, really fundamental and core to the vehicles today.
Okay. So in other words, without some software, the electric motor really doesn't know what the driver's asking it to do.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
All right. So I'm willing to bet that some of our listeners here are probably thinking that question I asked is a sign that I'm pretty old or a real Luddite. But it means I've been around long enough to see that what software has done for mobility so far, because there's no way we would have the vehicles today that do amazing things like Hemi engines, neck-straining performance, or a real luxury ride, or even the reduced emissions without the software that's been in our engine and body controllers. But I like to look forward. But what do you think software will do for us next?
Yeah, so, software is really going to be providing those features, really, I would say the intelligence that will facilitate the wow that our customers are going to experience, right? So if I give you a scenario or maybe a use case, right? So if I'm going to my car and I get into my car, and now what it would do is it would recognize me, right, through facial recognition. It would adjusts the seats and the mirrors to what my favorite comfortable settings are, right? And then let's just say I say, okay, I'm actually going to be leaving Detroit and I'm headed out to Chicago, right? So then it'll map for me what the best route is and best route depending on, the fastest time to get there, depending on what the traffic is, maybe what the weather is, whether I'm going uphill or downhill. It'll identify where the next stop will be, depending on what my fuel is and what it anticipates the fuel consumption to be, right? So where my stop would be to recharge my vehicle if it's an electrified vehicle. Let's say if I put in there I want to stop to get a Starbucks, it'll tell me where that Starbucks is and where I want to get, grab a coffee. And then maybe even in the future, it's going to tell me just, maybe it's just going to drive me to get there, right? So, we're talking a lot about autonomous driving and obviously that's in our future as well. So, it completely transitions and transforms the way we drive today, right? It's
Okay.
big change.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, this is going to get me fired, but I just got to say it because it's on my brain. Facial recognition is all cool. The car knows who you are when you're going in. I'm sure my wife would be saying, why doesn't facial recognition work in the bathrooms? Put down the toilets. But okay, now I'm fired and it's all good. It's software does a lot, and it's interesting. You're talking about, well, the car will do this for me. The car will do that for me. The software let me ask the car to do things for me. I know, our DS brand in Europe, they're incorporating Chat GPT into what they're doing. Is that part of what you see as the future?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, it can be part of that and what our product is going to offer. I mean, we're always thinking about these new ideas and really what our customers are looking for, or even maybe what they don't know what they're looking for, and that what we can provide to them. So absolutely, that could be part of it. We are considering having things like Alexa as well, so you can ask the car and it'll look up for you on what can be done. So all kinds of things.
Okay. So in your job in software inside Stellantis, how do we approach software for these future vehicles? You know, many companies you think about we need software, so you have to go out and you find a vendor. Are we going out and finding vendors for the software that'll do these magical things we're talking about, or is this an opportunity where we're writing our own software?
Really both, right? So we're definitely writing more and more of our own software, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily 100%. There are certain elements of that you can purchase through suppliers or through vendors that we continue to do. Depending, I think it really comes down to this, one is is it very strategic to our competitive edge, right? Is it something that we have the capacity within the timelines required in order to develop it in house, right? And I think that's really where the combination comes in, right? And we often call this internally make versus buy, what we make inside and what we buy, but we're very conscientious on what that looks like and where we're headed. So it's there's no one straight answer. It's really on a case by case basis.
Hmm. Today, if I had to ask you, are we buying more than we're making software wise, or is it close to 50-50?
Well, I would say in the current production programs, I would say definitely we were buying more than what we were making. That's definitely changing, right? So in
Okay.
all of our new product lines, that's completely changing.
Okay, cool. So I gotta ask, how did you get interested in software?
Yeah, well, I graduated way back when, so I won't I won't necessarily give you years, but when I graduated, my focus was actually on controls development, and oftentimes when people think of controls, that was sort of the integration of software and mechanical components. So think about, kind of those new carburetors, if you will, right?
Hmm.
And that's how I started. But then my first role was actually in aviation, and then I sort of got into heavy duty trucks and the industrial applications. And when I was in that, one of the areas I became really interested in was the speed of developing, you know, features, but products, and really just the core essence of software development as a whole. And that's really where I transitioned into the development of consumer electronics. So, I started working on uh, I wouldn't say infotainment systems, but I would say, kind of those back of the seat applications that you would see maybe on an aircraft, sort of
Hmm.
those set top boxes, if you will. And the timeline to develop those was very, very quick. Like I would say 6 months. And if you didn't do it within that 6 months, you're almost becoming obsolete.
Huh.
So for me to get into the automotive industry, it was actually quite a natural migration. I had worked in actually at that point several different industries, but I joined the automotive industry now, I would say within the last 9 years. And it was really when software was starting to pick up, and started becoming a real critical piece of the evolution of vehicles. um, and so software now, like I've said to so many people, it's part of autonomous driving, it's part of AI, it's part of the cloud, it's part of electrification, and just so many aspects of the vehicle today that it was, like I said, a very natural progression for me. And when I think of the automotive industry and I think of that discipline of software, there's never been a more exciting time than right now to be part of the automotive industry, and especially with software being at the heart of it. So yeah, I've been doing software probably about, well, at least 28 years or so, and yeah, the last 9 years in the automotive space. So it's been great.
Back 20 plus years ago, could you have ever dreamed of being in the auto industry with what your interests were
Gosh,
in software?
no, no. I mean, I didn't have the foresight to see where we were going with although, I say that, and again, like I said, I started my career in aviation, and at that point in time we were developing a head-up guidance system, which is not that different to autonomous driving, but I mean, again, there's
Uh-huh.
similarities and not so many similarities. But yeah.
So does it intrigue you that the auto industry, and I'm thinking Stellantis, we have a partnership with Archer, but that there are now parallels that we're working with companies that envision all these different types of mobility, and Archer, for our listeners who may not know, they're developing and producing a EV EV ETOL, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like an airplane hybrid helicopter, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's kind of these small stops. Yeah, no, it's I can see the parallel activities now, right? And I can see where we're headed. But honestly, about 28 years ago, I don't think I would have made that analogy
Yeah.
necessarily.
Um. So I think here's an interesting question. Software people in general, I think, have a love-hate relationship with software. They love the cool things that software is supposed to do for them, and then on a particular day when they need it, it doesn't work for some reason,
Yeah.
um, and that's very frustrating. So how do we convince consumers, our customers, that all this software we're developing and that's going to make all these vehicles do a wonderful thing, um, isn't going to strand them somewhere?
Yeah, it's a good it's a good question because whenever I tell people I'm in software, that's always they always bring up the things that aren't working. I think just with the maturity of software and obviously it becoming such a critical facet of our day-to-day development and lives, I think the all of that will come to a play where hopefully we're not seeing so many issues and well, we obviously won't be seeing as many issues, and it'll be more about educating, I think the end user as to what the software is doing for them and how it's actually improving, the kind of the way that they feel about their vehicles. So I kind of see it more as a training and an education as opposed to what it the opposite side and trying to convince them.
Does
That's
does
that's
does that mean as we're developing software that we have to work extra hard to come up with a fail-safe or a backup, in case the original line of script doesn't do what it wants to do?
Oh yeah,
I know I'm using technical
absolutely.
terms
No,
here,
no,
script, like
no,
I know what I'm talking about, but
no, 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 you're absolutely right. I mean, it's yeah, absolutely. As you're developing these features that are more critical, safety critical is what I would say, then you must be looking at that redundancy to make sure that they're foolproof. I mean, again, we talked a little bit about the aviation piece, but you don't develop although very critical, right? If you think of any issue that could happen on an aircraft, it's quite different when you're looking at redundant systems, when you're looking at a 50-person aircraft versus an aircraft that holds 500 people. Those redundant systems are significantly different, right? And the same would be true again as you're looking at these features that could involve safety critical elements. They will be designed with a lot more redundancy and safeguards for sure.
okay. So in your position in Stellantis with software, is there a division? Do you segment like the in-vehicle infotainment software versus the propulsion software, or does all of it run through you?
So I'm very focused on one of our new platforms that we call Stella Brain.
Hmm.
In addition to that, I'm also on, so again, a lot of what we focus on the SWX side is sort of our new platform. So Stella Brain, Stella Auto Drive, Stella Cockpit. Some of the more in production activities right now, right? So kind of what we would call is in production. That's where you find a lot of the powertrain domain, etc. But that will eventually come in as well to their new platforms. But that's where they're focused on right now.
Okay. So Stella Brain, Stella Smart Cockpit. Um, when do we start seeing that, or I should say, when does a customer start seeing that?
Yeah, well, they're all coming here. They all should be out here by 2025. That's our commitment and our Dare Forward plan, and that's what we're driving towards.
Okay.
No pun
I,
intended.
No, no, none at all. No, hey, puns are my job here.
Yeah, right, right, right.
I know I've kind of harped on cars and stuff a lot, Redmond. Are there other areas of our business where software is making a big difference?
Oh yeah, well, everywhere. I would say every part of our business, right? Even if you're just thinking about things like the way we track programs and make sure that the budgets are aligned to those programs, or even hiring people. Every aspect of our day-to-day lives revolves around software. It's
Okay.
everywhere.
Is there anything in our future that software's not going to have an influence on?
Well, you're probably asking the wrong person. I do, it is absolutely in almost everything that we work on. The only areas, obviously, as we think about, interpersonal relationships, or, those types of things. I think obviously there's an element where software can't play a part in that. But no, I mean, in most things that we do on day to day, it's very much at the core.
Okay. I, if you don't mind a little bit of a personal type question, because we're talking software, do you play video games? Have you ever? I mean, now or in the past? To me, if I sit here and think about it, that might be the software equivalent of me rolling on the ground, getting my hands greasy and my face full of either engine oil or coolant. The old garage guys. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I do. I mean, I play some video games. I should preface it with the some. I mean, I do play, so I like trivia games. I do play like Madden, which is sort of the soccer game. But I will be honest. I don't play. So most people, when they think of video games, they think of those first-person shooter video games. I don't
Uh,
play those at all. It's funny because I actually do suffer quite a bit from motion sickness, and when you play those
uh,
games, they make you sick really, really fast. So I don't play any of those absolutely by choice, but I definitely have a few kids who play them nonstop. So but
so
yeah,
at
but I
least
do
you
like
know
the other
about them.
ones. Oh,
Yeah.
I know about them. That's for sure.
So, can you tell me, was there an aha moment when you were growing up, when you said, yeah, software, that's really what I want to do day in and day out as a job?
I can't say there was an aha moment per se. Like I said, I started out in the controls space, right? And I was, I mean, just educationally, I was very strong at math. I did a lot of computer programming, just even in my coursework. I was interested in kind of mechanical components as well. So for me, that was a natural area to focus on. And I think software, it was almost it wasn't an aha moment. It was just something that I started getting involved in. I started enjoying, and it was just a natural progression.
So how do you manage the software move? I know software moves very fast. So how do you keep yourself up to date today with something topics you've been working on for a couple decades now?
Yeah, it's you gain a lot just through talking with your industry colleagues, listening even to podcasts as an example, or even going to conferences. I mean, we do go to quite a few conferences. We learn what's there. I do a lot of reading on the side, and so I'm always enjoy reading kind of some white papers, those types of things, just to understand what's really going on. We have a lot of collaboration with universities, and so that's always very interesting. But in general, that's how we keep up to date, and I don't shy away even from doing some coding here and there on my own. So it's I like to learn some of the new languages that are out there. Of course, it's not my day-to-day activity anymore. I
Uh-huh.
don't That's not really what I spend most of my day doing at work, but I do, on the side. I will start looking at that and tinkering around some of that type of activity.
All right. So we happen to be doing this podcast at a time when it coincides with International Women's Month, and I'm curious because you've been in the industry for a while. Are we doing a good enough job of getting more women in the auto industry as software people?
Well, we're doing a better job. I'll say that. I'll say we're absolutely doing a better job. I would say women are still very low in comparison, to men, especially working in engineering. Well, engineering as a whole, but but probably a little bit better on the software side. I think it's really just, informing and demonstrating, to girls that are in school, encouraging them, showing them what their life can be, some of the interesting projects that we work on, all those, I mean, I think it's just the more and more we do, the better off and the better, role models we can be for the generation. So, um, but there's still a lot of work to do. It's definitely something. I don't want to say all girls, because there's a lot of girls who do express interest in it, but
Uh-huh.
but probably not maybe the first that comes to mind. So
Okay. All right. Um, if you don't mind, I have one final question for you.
sure.
And it's a wild one, and so I'm kind of curious. What's one software feature you would really want to have in your personal vehicle? I don't. I'm going to guess this has crossed your mind when you've been driving to work a day or two, and then tell me how close are we to possibly having that?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, actually, because we have like a tech innovative forum, right, where employees can get together, brainstorm ideas, and bring different features, to fruition. And very recently, there was one, in fact, that was identified, and it was to determine. So, firstly, it was to determine if you were traveling with a dog or a pet in the back of your car, and let's say you parked the car and windows were closed, but the vehicle could detect that there was a dog in the car firstly, or a pet in the car firstly,
Hmm.
and then determine what the temperature was in the car, and then immediately start it up, put the air conditioning on, or open the windows, signify to any passerby that there was a an animal in the car, and then regulate the temperature of the vehicle to ensure that the animal was in no danger and that they would remain safe.
Huh.
So that, absolutely, being a dog lover myself, that was absolutely one feature I would love. I would love it, because I often worry about that on a very hot summer day. If I'm, let's say, bring the dog out for a walk and I come home, or
Yeah.
not come home, but I stop somewhere, and it's hotter than what I would think. It happens very, very quickly, and so that would be something I would really, really love to have.
Okay. Can you get software that also like automatically cleans the dog slobber off the windows from when I'm driving around and they're in the back hanging their heads
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
I don't know.
This will be the second. This will be the follow-on feature to. You're
But
right.
here's my one. Here's what I want from software. I thought about this,
Uh-huh.
and it's probably an ADAS thing. So I'm older, so I don't do this often. But I'll go to, if you go to an event like a concert or a theater show or something like that. I want software that helps everybody get out of the parking lot in a nice, orderly manner, but that's as efficient as possible, rather than everybody standing around twiddling their thumbs waiting for one person to either back in or back out of the spot. Anyhow, that's my own personal wish, and that'll probably happen someday too.
I'm sure it will.
So,
Right.
Tara, this has been a really interesting chat, and I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day to listen to me rant a little bit, but tell me a lot more about software that's going on inside Stellantis, and what to me looks like a pretty interesting future.
Oh yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Very nice to talk to you as well, Dale.
Well, and maybe we'll come back in a year, and I can ask you, hey, well, how did we do in the last year when everything what did we get done? So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to put that in my calendar.
Okay, okay. I'll look
So,
forward to it.
all right. Well, thank you, Tara.
Okay,
And
thank you.
thank you all for listening to the Stellantis Tech and AI podcast, where we speak with some of the brightest minds in the tech and automotive industries. We invite you to follow Stellantis Tech and AI on LinkedIn and Instagram to join the conversation, stay updated on what's ahead, and be a part of the community exploring the fast line of technology and AI in the automotive world. We'll see you again soon.